Welcome to the University of Michigan Dentistry Podcast Series, promoting oral health care worldwide.
The purpose of dental gold casting is to replace the missing portion of the tooth structure with dental gold alloy. In short, the procedure involves making a wax pattern of the missing portion, spruing the pattern, then investing in a material known as an investment. Then invested wax pattern is placed in the oven, and the wax pattern is burned off, leaving a cavity in there. The final step is melting the gold alloy and casting into the cavity. In another word, the missing portion, which originally was made out of wax pattern, now is replaced by gold casting. It is rather obvious that this gold casting should fit the missing portion of the tooth as accurately as possible. The purpose of today's exercise is not to show you how to make an accurate wax pattern, but it is to familiarize everyone with the various steps that are involved in dental castings. Every wax pattern requires a sprue. Sprue provides a channel through which the molten metal would enter to the mold cavity. The diameter of the sprue, the length of the sprue, the pressure on the casting machine, the weight of the molten metal, along with the porosity of the investments, determines how fast the molten metal would fill the mold cavity. Since the molten metal would freeze within 2 to 3 seconds after entering the mold cavity, therefore every attempt should be made to fill the mold cavity as fast as possible. Not only the size or the diameter of the sprue is important in obtaining a good casting, but also location of the sprue as well as the direction of the sprue plays a big role. In order to save time, we have provided you with one of these wax patterns. This is a preformed wax pattern of a full crown type. Now I'm going to show you how to sprue and invest this wax pattern. We are going to use a Y shape of a sprue in spruing these things. And the sprue is made out of the wax. So you take about 1.5 inches of a wax rod of about 12 gauge. Then you close these two ends, like so. And then you hold it in one hand and open the other end like this. So this is the Y shape of a sprue. Then the distance between these openings should be exactly the size or that you want it to be. In other words, to fit between these two cusps. You can close it or open it until it fits just about the right area that you want it. For example, in this particular case, we want to sprue into these two cusps, just like that. Now in spruing it, you take a hot spatula, like number 7 spatula, and put a little bit of a sticky wax on it, very little. Don't use the blue wax that we use usually. Just take a little bit of a sticky wax and then just attach it in these two cusps. Put a little bit of it in these two cusps ahead of time. Maybe just a hair more. Now you come down in here, and then hit it a little bit more. the spatula to secure this junction. Now this pattern has been sprued. Now we are going to go ahead and place it on the sprue former. In general, we have two types of sprue formers, as you could see it. One of them has one hole on the top, is a conical shape, and the other one is the top of it is flat, like this. Now, all the metal sprues or a single sprues, you could use this other type of a sprue former, but something like a wax sprue, you have to use this larger opener. So you take a little piece of utility wax and then place it right in here. Like this. And then take a number 7 spatula and go ahead and make a space, big enough space, so that you can put that Y-sprue into here. After you place the Y-sprue in here, then you take some more utility wax and build around here. We use utility wax because it is easily adaptable. And add a little bit into here in such a fashion that eventually you are going to make this conical shape out of this one also. That conical shape helps the molten metal to get into the mold cavity a little faster and stay in the molten condition a little bit longer. Now you go ahead and fill some of these points. For example, right over here. Now remember that wherever there is no wax, investment is going to fill there. And then the sharp points of investment, for example, like around here, it may break when the molten metal comes in. So you have to completely fill those areas with the wax, just the way that I am doing it now. The wax pattern has been placed on the sprue former and is ready to be invested. But since the investment materials do not wet the surface of the wax properly, therefore the surface of the wax has to be treated in order to make it easy to be wetted easier with investment materials. There are many materials or many liquids in the market to do this. For example, two of the well-known ones are, one is this debubblizer made by Kerr Company, and the other one is wax pattern cleaner made by Jelenko Company. And what one should do, just by using a camel hair brush, take some of that debubblizer and just brush it on like this to cover all the surface of the wax, and then go ahead and remove the excess of this debubblizer. Just go with the brush against it like that and remove all the excess. It is better to leave a very small film of this liquid on the wax when you are investing it. You do not have to dry it completely. Something like this. Now, this one is ready to be invested. The investment material that we are going to use with today's exercise is the luster cast made by Kerr Company. Each of these packages contain 50 grams of powder, and it should be mixed with 17 cc of water. Now, before I go ahead and mix actually this one, I should mention something about that, how we are going to do it. Naturally, after mixing it, we put the ring over this wax pattern and fill it in here. During the setting and hardening procedure, this material, this investment material, it sets, and it is known as the setting expansion of the investment. It sets and expands. Now, in order to have a uniform expansion in axial direction as well as in the lateral direction, we have to provide some space in these directions so that the investment can expand into it. One way of doing that is by means of this asbestos liner. Asbestos liner provides an extra room in the lateral direction so that the investment can expand into it. The detail of these portions, the effect of the various manipulative conditions on properties of the investment will be discussed next semester during the dental materials lectures. But here we are trying to familiarize every one of you with the technique itself. So you just have to follow more or less what is being told rather than why is done exactly in that fashion. Now, this asbestos liner has to fill completely this ring, all surrounded it, without leaving any parts of it uncovered or to be overlapping. It shouldn't be overlapped, nor it should leave the ring uncovered. One way of doing it, just go and take a piece of asbestos liner, go on the outside and cut it off here, like so, and then roll it and put it inside of the ring, as I'm showing it to you now. Now, naturally, there's quite a bit of overlapping in here. Hold the spot that has been overlapped, take it out, and then cut it right through this overlap area. Now then, place this back in here. This should fit just right, as you can see it. Another point is that the width of this asbestos liner is narrower than the length of this ring, as you could see. Now, the asbestos liner should be placed such that half of this open place to be on the bottom and the other half in the top. In other words, just right in the center, just the way that I have done it in here. Now you go ahead and you immerse this one in water, and then take it out, rinse so that you get rid of all the excess water, and then place it on the ring. Now this ring is ready, and the instrument or the equipment that you are going to use for investing it is this vacuum mix. This vacuum mix is the equipment that it will mix the investment, it vibrates it, it fills the ring. All of this is done under, all of these are done under vacuum. So you could see that this part fits to the machine, and machine rotates it, and this portion fits the vacuum, and this is where that your ring is going to fit. Now make sure that always this ring goes all the way in. And sometimes it is necessary to take just a drop of water, just a wet finger, just rub it over here around the edges, and that makes it easier for the ring to go in. Now, one thing I like to show you, and that is this, that the investment material goes from here into the ring. And you have to always be able to look at it and see entire pattern. For example, as you see, it is difficult to fill it. Now, by just rotating a little bit, like about 45 degrees or so, now you see the pattern is sitting right. Now it can fill by far easier and better. Now everything is ready. We could take the whole thing to vacuum spat and mix the investment and invest the pattern under the vacuum. Every one of you has also one of these nylon holes, which is part of your vacuum unit equipment. One part of this hose fits into this part, and the other side of it fits to your vacuum spat. So this way you can create a vacuum inside of this mixing bowl. Now you understood that we are going to mix it under the vacuum and vibrate it and fill the ring under the vacuum. Before we go ahead and mix the investment, we have to be sure that if this machine is working properly and if these holes are not plugged. One way of knowing it is just to check the gauge. Now when I put the machine on, the gauge should read under 10. And when I put my finger on this hose, and in other words, stop it, the air from going in, then the vacuum should read over 26, 27. Now let's try. Now you see that right now is reading about 8. Now I go ahead and I do this, and it reads around 27 and a half. So the vacuum is working, and now we can go ahead and mix the investment. Another point that I like to mention is after the investment is mixed, which is right now in here, then we bring it over here and we try to fill the ring. Now in this fashion. Now you notice that this blade sometimes may be on the way, like this. And then that stops from investment going inside of the ring. So the blade has to be out of the way, like this. And one way of knowing that whether the blade is standing like this or like this is by looking over here. There is a line over here. This line is parallel with the direction of the blade. So right now, for example, this blade means that it is blocking the way. So always that has to be, this line has to be like so. So out of the way for the ring. Now I'm going ahead and mixing the investment. Here it is, 17 cc of water. You have to remember, always put the water first and then add the powder. Never add water into powder. Now these packages are exactly 50 grams, and you have to be sure that all the powder is poured into this water so that to get the proper water to powder ratio. One way of making sure is just cut it all the way I am doing it. Break it all the way to here, like so. And then fill it into here. Now in this manner, all the powder has come out of the envelope. Then you save this one, just in case that you couldn't put the ring in the oven the same day as you have been investing the wax pattern. Then you can store it in there so that the water not to lose nor to gain. So you mix it a little bit with the hand spatula so that all the powders are wet. Now you place this one in there, on it, and attach the vacuum and get down in here and place in this hole. And this should You vibrate this for about 20 seconds. I meant you mix it for 20 seconds. Now take it out after the 20 seconds. And here's the vibrator. You vibrate it in here. Then turn it around and place this part, not the sprue former, on the vibrator. In other words, like this. Not ever like this. This is the sprue former. Place this part of the equipment in there and place your right hand over it so that the vibration to be proper, and make sure that this line is the way that I'm showing it. It's out of the way. Now, after a few seconds that you think that the ring is filled, get down there with these two fingers and pull the vacuum out while it is under the vibration. Hold under the vibration. Now the ring is filled, and hold it like this with your right hand and try to remove the ring from the equipment by rotating back and forth. And while it is in this form, just touch it in here for 2 or 3 seconds more vibration, and this is it. You take it back to your bench and leave it there for at least 45 minutes. During that time, the investment sets and hardens, and its setting expansion takes place, and then after 45 minutes or an hour, then it is ready to go into oven for wax elimination. Now the investment is set, and it is ready to go to the oven for wax elimination. Before we place it in the oven, naturally we have to remove the sprue former. Now sprue former is removed, and now this ring is ready to go into oven. Before we use the sprue former next time, we have to be very sure that all is cleaned. And these fine particles of the investment that you see in here, they are loose particles, and if I do not clean them before reusing them, then they will get on the way. They will go into the sprue, and they will go through the sprue, they will go through the pattern, and then the gold casting will have some inclusions. It is very important that to have these things cleaned before reusing them. The investment is set, and the ring is ready to be placed in the oven for wax elimination. For better wax elimination, it is recommended that to place the ring in the oven, half of the prescribed time would hold down like this, so that most of the wax to melt and just run out. And then small amount of the wax that is remained in the investment or is absorbed by the investment, then you should put the ring up, the hole up, so that the oxygen to be able to get there and react with the residue of the wax and completely eliminate the wax from the mold cavity. This will opens very, very minute porosities of the investment, so that when the molten metal gets in there, and that pushes the air from the mold cavity to get out, so that air is going to go out through the porosity of the investment. And if the wax is not completely eliminated, then that air cannot get out, and one would not obtain a complete casting. Before we actually melt the alloy, let's take a second and discuss the type of the flame that we should use for melting this gold alloys. Every one of you has one of these torches. the torch has two adjustments, one red in color, one green in color. The red one is for adjusting gas, and the green one is for air. There are also two adjustments on the line, one for air and one for gas. In another word, you have four adjustments, two for gases and two for air. Now, this makes it a little bit more difficult to adjust air and gas with four adjustments. It will be easier if you would open completely the air adjustment on the torch, just what I am doing now, and adjust the air from the line. So as if this adjustment never existed. Now, on the other hand, I'm going to go ahead and open the gas on the line and adjust the gas from on the torch in this fashion. Now, what we are going to do, we want to have a flame which is a reducing in nature, so that the gold alloy not to be oxidized while it is being melted, and it should be melted in relatively short period of time. In another word, we are trying to get the most heat or the best flame out of a given torch that we have. In order to do that, we are going to open this gas and then open quite a bit from the line and then lit it. Then start giving slowly some air to it. And then there's going to be a time along the line that this flame is going to look like discontinuous. And if it is going to see that if we add just a little bit more air to it, the flame is going to be turned off completely. At that stage, we'll stop addition of any air. Then we start cutting down on the gas by this thumb, and then until the discontinuous flame becomes continuous again. And as soon as the discontinuous flame becomes continuous, that is the flame that we should use for melting of the gold alloy. Now let's try and see this. Now I will add air to it. Now you notice that the flame is starting to break around there. Now if I add a little bit more flame to this one, more gas to this one, the flame will go off. That's just about the right amount of the air. Now I'll start with this thumb closing on the gas. Now you see that this discontinuous flame became continuous again. Now if I cut the gas off a little bit more, you could see how sharper this flame gets. Now this is a hotter flame, and it is mainly used for soldering. It covers a much lesser area, but it is hotter. Now the flame for melting of the alloy is more like this. Not this. This is a centrifugal casting machine. By its mean, we are going to make this casting. And as you see, there is a crucible in here. And this crucible, we are going to put the alloy, gold alloy in here and melt the alloy. And that fits into this cradle. And the cradle moves back and forth. Be sure that always, before melting the alloy, the cradle is back in here so that you have enough room. And this is where the ring is going to fit. You bring the ring from the oven after the metal is melted and place it here and push the cradle back and then let the machine spin. first of all, we have to put some pressure into this casting machine, and this pressure is done by just a plain spring loading. So you count it at 3 turns. You turn this one 3 turns, 1 and a 2 and a 3. Then after the third turn, there's a pin over here. You raise this pin. This is the stopper, and that will stop. Now you can see that there's quite a bit of a pressure built into this casting machine. Now after I melt my alloy, I am going to go ahead and release it, and this is going to spin and make the casting. So we'll put these 4 pennyweights of gold in here. Now everything is ready. Now we open this cradle a little bit so that we have enough room in here for the ring to fit. Now we'll go ahead and melt our alloy. By now, 2 or 3 minutes is passed, and the molten metal in the mold cavity is frozen. It is time to quench it in the water and recover the casting. It is important that the casting to be cleaned completely, so every piece of investment to be removed. Otherwise, the casting will not seat on the die properly. Now we'll go ahead and clean the surface in acid, or in other words, we do the pickling action. The casting is recovered. As you could see, there's lots of oxide films on this casting which has to be removed, and in order to remove it, it has to be pickled. Pickling solutions that we use in this school is this pre-wax. It is a form of an acid, and it has to be handled accordingly. So you put this casting into a crucible, and then you add some pickling solution to it until it covers the casting completely. Then you take it to the Bunsen burner and you heat it. This may take about a minute or two until the pickling solution boils and all the oxide is removed. Now, you either use a rubberized tweezers like this one to remove the castings from the solution, or if you didn't happen to have a rubberized tweezers, just take it back and pour the excess of this solution into the bottle. It can be reused and reused for many, many times. Then you rinse this one few times with water until the concentration of acid becomes almost negligible. Then you can reach it and pick it with your fingers. Or if you did happen to have a rubberized tweezers, and go ahead and take it with rubberized tweezers and rinse it in the water, as you could see that all those oxide film has been eliminated, and the gold casting has the color of the gold, which should have.
You've been listening to a presentation from the University of Michigan School of Dentistry, which is dedicated to supporting open learning and open educational resources. This recording is licensed under the Creative Commons. It may be reused and redistributed for nonprofit use. Please attribute materials to the University of Michigan School of Dentistry and redistribute under this same license. For more information on how this and other University of Michigan School of Dentistry recordings may be used, visit www.dent.umich.edu/license.